Namaskar, Om Shakti Hrim, Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. The Bhagavata Purana, the life of Krishna in Dvaraka. Kamsa was so much of an oppressor that Krishna was forced to kill him. Kamsa had two wives named Asti and Prapti, and they were the daughters of Jarasandha, the king of Magadha. Jarasandha was very angry to learn that his son-in-law had been killed, and he resolved to kill the Yadavas. He raised an army that was 21 battalion Akshauhini strong and laid siege the city of Mathura. Mathura was surrounded from all sides by Jarasandha's army. The Yadavas came out to fight and led by Balarama and Krishna defeated Jarasandha. But Jarasandha came back again with an army. Again he was defeated. This went on. 17 times Jarasandha lost, and 17 times he retired to Magadha. He then began to raise an army for the 18th time. Meanwhile the Yadavas were faced with another enemy. This was in the form of a king named Kalyavana, who was about to attack Mathura. Krishna realized that the Yadavas needed a stronger and more fortified capital if they were to face up to enemies from two directions. A beautiful city was accordingly built on the shores of the ocean. It had wide roads and magnificent houses. More importantly, it was much better protected than the city of Mathura. This new city was Dvaraka or Dvaravati. Krishna now decided to do something about Kalyavana. He came alone to where Kalyavana was, and seeing Krishna, Kalyavana wanted to attack him. But Krishna began to run and Kalyavana followed him. Krishna had a plan. He led Kalyavana to a cave in the mountain side. It was dark inside the cave and Kalyavana could not see very well. In the dim light he saw a man sleeping inside the cave. Kalyavana thought that it had to be Krishna and kicked the body. But the sleeper was not Krishna. It was a person named Muchukunda. He had been sleeping for many years and had been woken up by Kalyavana. He realized that the person has woken him up from his sleep, and he looked angrily at Kalyavana. Kalyavana was burned to ash from the blaze of this anger. How did this come about? Muchukunda was a king of the Ikshvaku dynasty. The gods were busy fighting with the demons and needed some aid. Muchukunda fought on the side of the gods for many years, but eventually the god obtained a general in the form of the god Kartikeya, and no longer needed Muchukunda. So they told Muchukunda, "King, you have fought with the demons for many years and have successfully protected us. You have given up all worldly pleasures, but we are no longer need your service. What do you propose to do? So many years have passed that all your friends, relatives and subjects on earth are now dead. Ask for whatever boon you desire." Muchukunda replied, I'm tired after fighting for so many years. I feel like having a long sleep. Please grant me the boon that whatever wakes me up will be burned to ashes by my wrath. That it was that Kalyana was killed. There was a king named Bhishmaka, who ruled over the kingdom of Vidarbha. The king had 5 sons and daughters. The eldest son was Rukmi and the daughter was Rukmini. Rukmini had heard of Krishna's prowess and other qualities, and wished to marry him. Her father was not averse to such an alliance, but Rukmi hated Krishna and refused to accept such a marriage. He wished to get his sister married off to Shishupala, the king of the kingdom of Chedi. Rukmini sent a Brahmana as an emissary to Krishna. Through the Brahmana, Rukmini said, "My marriage has been fixed for the day after tomorrow, and I to be married to Shishupala. I want to marry you instead. please come and abduct me. Tomorrow I shall go to visit the temple of the goddess Parvati. That is outside the city. Please come and abduct me there. Krishna came to Kundina, the capital of the kingdom of Vidarbha. Shishupala also came there with a large number of companions and many gifts for Bhishmaka. Bhishmaka made separate lodging arrangements for Shishupala and Krishna. Balarama and several other Yadavas had also followed Krishna to Kundina. When Rukmini went to visit the temple, Krishna abducted her. The many other kings who had assembled could only look on in wonder. When they recovered from the shock, they attacked Krishna, but the Yadavas easily repelled these enemies. Witnessing the defeat of his allies, Rukmini entered the fray with his own army. I will not return to Kundina without killing Krishna and rescuing Rukmini, he resolved. But Krishna destroyed all Rukmini's arrows and other weapons. He was about to kill Rukmini with a sword. Rukmini intervened. He is my brother, she said. Please spare him. Krishna agreed. But Rukmini had resolved that he would not return to Kundina without killing Krishna and rescuing Rukmini. What was going to happen to that oath? Instead of returning to Kundina, Rukmini began to live in a city named Bhahagavata. Krishna brought Rukmini back to Dvaraka and married her there. Their son was Pradyumna. When Pradyumna was only 10 days old, an asura named Shambhara kidnapped the baby and threw it into the ocean. The baby was swallowed by a big fish. The fish was caught by a fishman, and he brought the fish as a gift to Shambhara. Shambhara sent the fish to his kitchen, and when his cooks cut open the fish stomach, they discovered the baby inside. In Shambhara's household there lived a woman named Mayavati. Shambhara handed over the baby to Mayavati to rear. When Pradyumna grew up, Mayavati told him the story of his being kidnapped. Pradyumna challenged Shambhara to duel and killed the asura. He then married Mayavati and returned to Dvaraka. There was a Yadava named Satrajit. He was devoted to sun god Surya. Surya was pleased with Satrajit and gave him a wonderful jewel named Samantaka. The jewel shone like the sun itself. Satrajit used it to wear the jewel around his neck. And such were the wonderful properties of the jewel that all disease and famine vanished from the Yadava kingdom. It was Krishna's opinion that the jewel should rightfully be in the possession of Ugrasena, the king of the Yadavas. But Satrajit refused to part with the jewel. Satrajit's brother was Prasenjit, and Prasenjit borrowed the jewel from his brother. He then went to the forest on a hunt and was killed by a lion. The lion was in turn killed by the bear Jambavana. Jambavana brought the jewel home to his cave and gave it to his son to play with. Meanwhile, Prasenjit's dead body was discovered, and Satrajit concluded that it was Krishna who had killed his brother and stolen the jewel. This rumor quickly spread amongst the Yadavas. To vindicate his reputation, Krishna went to the forest to try and find out what had happened. He followed the trail to Jambavana's cave, and a terrible fight waged for 18 days and nights between Jambavana and Krishna. Jambavana finally accepted defeat. He not only returned Samantaka to Krishna, but also married his daughter Jambavati to him. When Krishna returned the jewel to Satrajit, Satrajit was ashamed that he had suspected Krishna in the first place. As atonement, he gave his daughter Satyabhama in marriage to Krishna. There were 3 other Yadavas who had wanted to marry Satyabhama. Their names were Akrura, Kritavarma and Shatadhanva. They were not at all happy that Satyabhama had been married off to Krishna. Akrura and Kritavarma advised Shatadhanva to kill Satrajit. Shatadhanva did this and stole the Samantaka jewel. But knowing that Balarama and Krishna would exact revenge for this deed, he fled from Dvaraka. He however left the jail with Akrura. Balarama and Krishna pursued Shatadvakhanva and Krishna killed the murderer. But they could find no trace of jail. Akrura of course kept his possession of the jail a complete secret. But Akrura and Kritavarma were not at all sure that their complicity in the crime would not be detected. They therefore left Dvaraka, and immediately disease and drought became rampant in the city. From this Krishna deduced that the jail must have been in Akrura's possession. He brought Akrura back to Dvaraka and persuaded him to confess that the jail was indeed in his possession. A demon named Narakasura ruled in the city of Prayajatishapura. He was the son of the ass Prithvi. The demon was so strong that he drove Indra out of heaven and stole Indra's umbrella and earrings. Indra went and complained to Krishna. The city of Prayajatishapura was very difficult to enter. It was surrounded by mountains on all sides and therefore forts on the mountains. A demon named Mura guarded the city. But Krishna destroyed the mountains and the forts with his mace. He then killed Mura with his Sudarshana chakra. Mura's 7 sons were also killed by Krishna. Narakasura now ascended an elephant and came to fight with Krishna. But he met the same fate as Mura. Krishna retrieved and returned Indra's umbrella and earrings. Narakasura had imprisoned 16,000 princes. Krishna freed them, had them brought back to Dvaraka and married them all. Rukmi, as you probably remember, had begun to live in the city of Hojakata. Rukmi's daughter was Rukmavati, and she was married to Krishna's son Pradyumna. Pradyumna and Rukmavati had a son named Aniruddha. Aniruddha got married to Rukmi's granddaughter Rachana. On the occasion of Aniruddha and Rachana's marriage, Balarama, Krishna and other Yadavas came to Bhajakata. Balarama was very fond of playing dice and so was Rukmi. They began to have a game. Balarama first placed 100 golden coins as a bet and lost. He then staked 1,000 golden coins and lost again. Not counted, Balarama now placed 10,000 golden coins as a bet. Rukmi won yet again. Finally, Balarama staked a lakh of golden coins. This time Balarama won, but the evil Rukmi denied that Balarama had won and insisted that it wasn't he who had won. This so angered Balarama that he killed Rukmi with a club. Vali used to be the king of the Asuras. Vali had 100 sons. The eldest was named Vana. Vana was devoted to Shiva and he ruled in the city of Shanitapura. Vana had pleased Shiva so much that Shiva had agreed to be the guardian of Shanitapura. Vana had a daughter named Usha. Usha dreamed of Aniruddha and fell in love with him. But she did not know who Aniruddha was. She did not know his name. However, Usha had a friend named Chitralekha, who was very good at drawing portraits. Chitralekha drew the portraits of gods, Gandharvas, Asuras, Yakshas and men, and Usha identified Aniruddha as a person she had fallen in love with. But how were Aniruddha and Usha to meet? It was again Chitralekha who found the solution. She brought Aniruddha from Dvaraka and he and Usha very secretly married. But Vana's guards discovered that was happening and went and reported this to the Asura king. Vana came to Usha's palace and discovered Aniruddha there. Also Aniruddha fought as best as he could. He was defeated and imprisoned by Vana. News of Aniruddha's imprisonment reached Dvaraka and the Yadavas attacked Shanitapura. Vana came out to fight, and because of his pledge to be a guardian of the city, Shiva also fought on Vana's side. Kartikeya has also come to fight on the side of his father Shiva. A miraculous battle ensued. Kartikeya was defeated by Pradyumna and Shiva by Krishna. Bana was also defeated by Krishna, but thanks to the Shiva's pleading on behalf of the Asura, Krishna spared Bana's life. The Yadavas returned to Dvaraka with Aniruddha and Usha. A king named Pundarika used to rule in the kingdom of Karusha. The king was so insolent that he sent a messenger and challenged Krishna to a fight. But having challenged Krishna, he went and began to live with his friend, the king of Kashi. This Krishna was not going to ignore. He came to Kashi to accept the challenge. Pundarika had with him an army that was 2 battalions Akshalhini strong. But Krishna decimated that army and killed Pundarika with his chakra. The king of Kashi began to fight in order to avenge his friend. But Krishna used the chakra to kill him as well. In the process, the king's head was carried into the city by a strong wind. Having disposed of the challenge, Krishna returned to Dvaraka. The prince of Kashi was Sudakshana. Sudakshana saw his father's severed head and thirsted for revenge. He performed a yajna and started to pray to Shiva. Shiva was satisfied with his prayers. "What boon do you desire?" he asked Sudakshana. "Please grant me the boon that I may kill my father's murderer," replied the prince. Shiva assented. "The fire of this yajna will go together with my companions, the ghost and the needful," says Shiva. "But take care that the fire is not directed at a Brahmana. If it is, the consequence will be dreadful." The fire adopted the form of a demon with a trident in its hand. It then headed towards Dvaraka, but Krishna's Sudarshana chakra repelled the fire. It drove the fire back to Kashi, where the fire consumed Sudakshana and all his priests. Samba was the son of Krishna and Jambavati. Lakshmana was Duryodhana's daughter. Lakshmana's Swayamvara ceremony, of which bride chooses her husband, had been arranged. But Samba came to the assembly and abducted Lakshmana. As this the Kauravas were injured, they attacked Samba and imprisoned him. The Yadavas prepared to fight with the Kauravas. But since the Yadavas and the Kauravas had close ties, Balarama thought that he could try peaceful means first. He came to Hastinapura and requested that Samba be released. The Kauravas were in no mood to listen. They regarded the Yadavas as belonging to an inferior race, and they were certainly not going to listen to Balarama. Balarama felt insulted. He also carried a plough with him. He grasped the city of Hastinapura with his plough and prepared to hurl it into the river of Ganga. The city rolled round and Kauravas realized their mistake. They fell at Balarama's feet and begged for mercy. Samba was released and Duryodhana gave 1,200 elephants, 1,200 horses, 60,000 chariots and 1,000 maids as gift. Balarama, Samba and Lakshmana returned to Dvaraka. Krishna went on a visit to Indraprastha, Yudhishthira's capital, and the Pandavas were delighted to see him. Yudhishthira told Krishna, "I'm thinking of performing a Rajasuya Yajna, royal sacrifice. What is your opinion?" "I think that is a very good idea," replied Krishna. "Defeat all the kings on earth, but remember that you will not be able to complete your sacrifice until Jarasandha is killed." The Pandava brothers started out on their conquest. Sahadeva headed south, Nakula west, Arjuna north, and Bhima east. After all the other kings were defeated, Bhima, Arjuna and Krishna disguised themselves as Brahmanas and went to Jarasandha's kingdom. They met Jarasandha and said, "We have come a long distance, grant us our desire." Jarasandha recognized them to be Kshatriyas disguised as Brahmanas. Nevertheless, he replied, "You have come to me as Brahmanas. I will grant you what you want. What is your desire?" "A duel," said Bhima, Arjuna and Krishna. "Choose any one of us and fight with him." All right, replied Jarasandha, but I will not fight with Krishna. He is a coward. Threatened with by invasion, he fled from Mathura to Dvaraka. Nor will I fight with Arjuna. He is younger than me and not quite strong enough. I shall fight with Bhima. The duel was arranged and Bhima and Jarasandha began to fight with maces. The maces clashed against each other and broke into many pieces. The warriors then started to wrestle. The noise was like that of two mad elephants fighting. For 27 days they fought. They fought during the day and behaved as friends during the night. Bhima could not kill Jarasandha, but Krishna knew Jarasandha's history. King Vrihadratha's wife had given birth to two lumps of meat, thrown them away in disgust. These were discovered by Rakshasa, demon woman named Jara. She joined the lumps together and produced a baby. Since Sanhi means uniting or putting together, the baby came to be known as Jarasandha, or one who has been put together by Jara. On the 28th day of the duel, Krishna advised Bhima to graze Jarasandha's leg in his two hands and then tear him apart. And this is precisely how Bhima killed Jarasandha. Jarasandha's son Sahadeva was crowned the king of Magadha. Jarasandha had imprisoned 20,800 kings. These kings were released. Many kings and sages assembled on the occasion of Yudhishthira's royal sacrifice. But ignoring everyone else, the first offering of the sacrifice was given to Krishna. This angered Shishupala. What utter nonsense, he said. Why should Krishna be given the first offering? This is like giving a cake to a crow. Everyone knows that the Yadavas are an inferior race. There are individuals assembled here who are more deserving than Krishna. The Pandavas took up their weapons to fight with Shishupala, and Shishupala too took up his weapons. But Krishna restrained the Pandavas and cut off Shishupala's head with his Sudarshana chakra. Sharva was Shishupala's friend. He resolved to kill the Yadavas and started to perform tapasya. He prayed to Shiva, and each day he ate only a fistful of dust. For an entire year Sharva prayed to Shiva. Finally Shiva was pleased and appeared before Sharva. What boon do you want? He asked Sharva. Please give me a Vimana, space Vihayal, that I can fight the Yadavas with, answered Sharva. Shiva instructed the Danava demon monarch to construct such a Vimana for Sharva. The Vimana was named Shubha, and it was made completely of iron. Armed with this Vimana, Sharva attacked Dvaraka and showered down weapons from the sky on the city. Dvaraka's ramparts and gardens were destroyed. Pradyumna and Sharva fought a wonderful duel with all sorts of divine weapons. Krishna was away at the time. When he returned, he found the battle raging. The fight was now on between Krishna and Sharva. Arrows clashed against arrows, mace against mace. At long last, Krishna smashed the Vimana with his mace. He then killed Sharva with his chakra. At the time of the Kurukshetra war, Balarama did not want to take sides. He preferred to remain neutral. He therefore went on a pilgrimage and came to a place named Prabhasa. He then arrived at the river Saraswati. After doing a circuit of several places of pilgrimage along the river, he reached the forest known as Naimisharanya. The sages had arranged for a sacrifice in the forest, and the sacrifice was to go on for 12 years. All the sages got up to honor Balarama. The only one who remained seated was Ramaharshana. Vyasadeva's disciple Balarama lost his temper at this. He killed Ramaharshana. The sage exclaimed, Balarama, you have done a terrible thing. You did not get up because that was part of sacrifice ceremony. You must perform penance. Balarama agreed. The sage first asked him to kill a demon named Vauvava, who was in the habit to disturbing the sacrifice. They then asked Balarama to go on pilgrimage for the period of 1 year. Next day Vaivava arrived at his wound, and Balarama killed the demon with a club. He then traversed the length and breadth of the country of his pilgrimage. There used to be a Brahman named Shri. When young, he and Krishna had studied under the same Guru, as the two had been friends. Now Krishna was in Dvaraka and Shri was exceedingly poor. He and his wife had no clothes to wear, no food to eat. One day Shri wife said, "Krishna is your friend? He is very rich. Why don't you go to him and ask him for some help? I'm sure that he will not refuse you." "Why not?" said Shri. "At least I shall get a chance to meet Krishna after ages. But what will I take as a present for him?" The Brahmana and his wife were so poor that they had no money to buy gifts. All they could manage were 2 handfuls of fried rice. This gift the Brahmana wrapped up in a piece of cloth and left for Dvaraka. Shri met Krishna in Dvaraka, and Krishna embraced him warmly. They got to talking about old times. Krishna asked Shri, "What have you brought me as a present?" The Brahmana was so ashamed of 2 handfuls of fried rice that he kept quiet. But Krishna hunted out the piece of the cloth and ate the fried rice to his heart's content. Shri spent the night in Krishna's house and felt as if he had gone to heaven. He was given wonderful food to eat and wonderful clothes to wear, but he could not bring himself to ask anything of Krishna. Next morning he left for his own dwelling. Krishna, however, had got to know what Shri had wanted without Shri asking for it. When the Brahman arrived home, he discovered a beautiful temple and large gardens and ponds there. There were maids and servants. "That is all this," wondered Shri, rubbing his eyes in disbelief. His wife imagined wearing handsome clothes. The Brahmana and his wife realized that all this was due to Krishna's grace. They lived happily ever after. Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva had powers of granting boons and levying curses. Brahma and Shiva were in the habit of granting boons and levying curses, but Vishnu was never so indiscriminate. Once Shiva had landed himself into a pretty mess. There was an asura named Vrika. He met the sage Narada and wanted to know who out of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva was pleased most easily. Shiva, replied the sage. Vrika went to a place of pilgrimage named Kedara and started his tapasya. First he tried to burn parts of his body. He continued to do this for 7 days, but Shiva did not appear. He then decided to slice his head into with an axe. Immediately Shiva appeared and restrained the asura. "What do you want?" asked Shiva. "Please grant me the boon that if I put my hand of anyone's head, the person will immediately die," answered the asura. Shiva granted the boon, but Vrika wanted to try out of the boon on Shiva himself. Once Shiva was dead, he thought that he could marry Parvati. Shiva started to run in fear and the demon followed. No one knew what to do until Vishnu came to rescue. Vishnu disguised himself and appeared before Vrika. "What is the matter?" he asked. The asura told him the story. "Shiva," exclaimed Vishnu, "who believes in Shiva and his boons, they are all lies. They never come true. If you don't believe me, why don't you put your hand on your own head and see? Nothing will happen." The stupid asura did as Vishnu had asked him to do and of course died. Shiva was profoundly relieved. The sages once wanted to find out who was supreme in the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. They sent Bhrigu to conduct an experiment. Rishi Bhrigu was also Brahma's son. He first went to visit Brahma, but did not bow down before him. Brahma's anger was aroused, but since Phrigu happened to be his son, he controlled his temper. Phrigu next went to Kailasa to visit Shiva. Shiva got up to embrace him, but Phrigu started to shout at Shiva. This so angered Shiva that he took up his trident to kill Phrigu. Parvati, however, managed to calm Shiva down. Phrigu now went to Vaikuntha and discovered that Vishnu was sleeping. He kicked the sleeping Vishnu on his chest. Vishnu woke up and said, "Brahmana, I am gratified that you have come to visit me. Are you well? Stay here for a while and be my guest. Your kick has freed me from all my sins. From now on I shall bear the mark of your feet on my chest." When Phrigu reported the result of his experiment, the sages concluded that Vishnu was the supreme god of the Trinity. There was a place of pilgrimage known as Pindarka. One day several Yadava youths were playing there when a group of sages arrived. The youths dressed up Samba as a woman and brought him to the sage. "Sages," they said, "you know everything. Please tell us whether this woman will indeed give birth to a son." The sages saw through the game and were very annoyed. "Stupid young man," they replied, "Samba will give birth to a club, and that club will lead to the destruction of all the Yadavas." When the sages went away, the Yadavas discovered a club, Mushala, inside Samba's clothing. Fearing the consequences of what they had done, they took the club home to Dvaraka and related the incident to King Ugrasena. The king ordered that the iron club should be pulverized into the dust and the dust scattered in the waters of the ocean. A small piece of the club did not get pulverized. This was swallowed by a fish, and the fish was later caught by a fishman. Through him the small piece of iron went into the possession of hunter named Jara, who used it to fashion a head for his arrow. The remaining iron dust was brought to the beach by the waves of the ocean. There the dust developed into reeds. Meanwhile all sorts of ill omens were witnessed. There were earthquakes and the sun looked blurred. Krishna called the Yadavas to him and said, "I do not like all these omens. Perhaps it is no longer safe to live in Dvaraka. Send the old men, women and children to the Tirtha place Shankhathara, and let all of us go to the Tirtha Prabhasa. We'll purify ourselves there and worship the gods." The Yadavas crossed the ocean in boats and arrived at Prabhasa. They arranged for the required sacrifice. But destiny cannot be avoided. They got to drinking a lot of wine and lost all control of their sense. They began to fight amongst themselves and kill each other with weapons. When the weapons were exhausted, the Yadavas plucked the reeds from the beach and began to fight with those. In their hands the reeds hardened into rods of iron. Thus it was that the Yadavas were destroyed. Balarama went to the shores of the great ocean. He gave up his life there through yoga. The sorrowful Krishna sat under the banyan tree and meditated. Jara the hunter was searching for a deer that he might kill. Through the thick foliage he saw Krishna's feet and thought that they were the ears of a deer. He therefore let loose an arrow, and when he came to see if his arrow had found its mark, he discovered that he had shot Krishna by mistake. Jara fell down at Krishna's feet and begged for mercy. Krishna readily pardoned him. It was after all no fault of the hunter. He had all been decreed by fate. Krishna gave up his mortal body and ascended to heaven. As soon as Krishna died, all of Dvaraka, with the exception of Krishna's own dwelling, was flooded by the ocean. Several years ago, Yadu, the ancestor of these Yadavas, met a learned young man. Where did you learn all this? He asked the young man. Who is your guru? You don't need any special guru, was the answer. Look at the ass Prithvi. She is continually hurt by the footsteps of all living beings. Yet she forgives them all. From the ass one can learn the art of forgiving. Look at the air while it fills all living beings with life, but does not get attached to any of them. From the air one can learn detachment. Look at the sky, Akasha. It is not stirred by the clouds that move across it. From the sky the Atman can learn how not to get stirred by the senses. Look at the water, Jala. It cleans everything. From the water one can learn the virtue of purification. Look at the fire, Agni. It adopts so many different forms. One learns that like the fire, the Paramatman, divine soul, can adopt many different forms. Look at the moon, Chandra. It seems to wax and wane, but nothing actually happens to it. From the moon you can learn that nothing actually happens to the Atman. The periods that mislead one are all illusions. Look at the sun, Surya. It evaporates the water in the summer, but returns in it in the monsoon. Like the sun, the learned returns the gratification of the sense and do not retain them. There are many gurus like these. One can learn from the several places. There does not necessarily have to be a formal teacher. In the land of Mawava, there used to be a very wealthy Brahmana. He had made a lot of money from agriculture and trade. He had become addicted to material pursuit and was also a miser. He never helped any of his relatives. Eventually the Brahmana exhausted most of his wealth and chiefs stole the remainder. The Brahmana began to think about what he had done with his life and realized that he had made a mistake. Material possessions were nothing. The Brahmana therefore became a hermit. He begged food for a living, he controlled his sense, and he started on a pilgrimage of the world. Chiefs stole whatever meager belongings the Brahmana still had, others stole whatever little food he had begged. But the Brahmana did not protest. He had even given up all conversation. The Brahmana's attempt was successful and he obtained true knowledge. One has to be like that Brahmana if one wishes to realize the nature of the Brahman. When Krishna died, the Kali era started. Parikshit had heard the story of the Bhagavata Purana from sage Shukadeva. He now asked the sage the name of the kings who would rule in Kali Yuga. The first dynasty to rule would be the Pradyota dynasty. There would be 5 kings in this dynasty, and they would rule for 128 years. Then Shishunaga dynasty would take over. The 10 kings of the dynasty would rule for 360 years. A Shudra named Mahapadma or Nanda would become king next. The Nanda dynasty would rule for 200 years. Thereafter Nanda and his 8 sons would be destroyed by Brahmana named Chanakya. And Chanakya would make Chandragupta the king. This would be the Maurya dynasty, and the 10 kings of this dynasty would rule for 137 years. The last king of the Maurya dynasty, Vrihadratha, would be killed by his general Pushyamitra. This would establish the Shunga dynasty, and the 10 kings of this dynasty would rule for more than 100 years. Then the Kandava dynasty would rule for 345 years. Next would follow 30 kings of the Andhra dynasty who would reign for 456 years. Many other dynasties and many other kings would rule, but the country would be splintered. The kings would be all evil. Evil is characteristic of Kali Yuga. Wealth is everything to people and righteous living has no value. Might becomes right. Trade means cheating. In the courts the poor obtain no justice. People sport long hair. Nepotism and corruption prevail. The king are chiefs and robbers. Cowards are as small as goats. The trees are as small as bushes. Famine and starvation prevail everywhere. But Kalki will arrive to put an end to Kali Yuga and establish a new Satya Yuga. He will be born in a village named Shambhala as the son of the Brahmana Vishnu Yasha. Shukadeva also informed Parikshit that 1115 years would elapse from the date of Parikshit's birth to the date of Mahapadmananda's coronation. You must have forgotten by now that Parikshit had been cursed that he would be beaten to death by a snake named Takshaka. Having had the Bhagavata Purana, Parikshit worshipped Shukadeva. He told the sage that he was no longer frightened of being beaten to death by a snake. He had learned the nature of the Atman and the Brahman. When Shukadeva left, Parikshit sat down and began to meditate. Takshaka disguised himself as a Brahman in order to get near the king. He then beat the king and Parikshit died. Parikshit's son Janmenjaya was furious. He resolved to perform a snake sacrifice, Sarpa Yajna, at which all the snakes would be killed. They would be consumed in the fire of the Yajna. Takshaka fled to Indra for protection. Janmenjaya finally stopped the sacrifice when Brihaspati interceded on behalf of the snakes. The Bhagavata Purana is the most sacred of the Puranas. It is to other Puranas what the Ganga is to rivers, Vishnu to gods, and the city of Kashi to Tirthas. Those who are devoted to Vishnu love this Purana. It is a text that should be studied, read and contemplated with great care. In the mouth of Bhadra it should be placed on a golden throne and donated. The person who does this acquires everlasting punya. The other Puranas are appreciated only by those who do not know about the Bhagavad Purana. After having read the Purana, we bow down in obeisance before the great Lord Vishnu. Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe.